The Grand Hall of Aurelia was built to remind every visitor exactly where they stood in the hierarchy of the galaxy. The ceiling arched so high that even the tallest species felt small beneath it. Crystalline lights drifted slowly through the air, casting soft reflections across polished marble floors. Representatives from dozens of worlds stood in ordered lines, their robes and armor displaying the pride of ancient civilizations. At the far end of the hall, elevated above everyone else, sat the throne of the Aurelian Empire. Upon it sat Queen Serena, only 26 years old, yet already one of the most powerful rulers in known space. Her silver crown glowed softly under the hall's light. Her posture was perfect, her expression calm, but her eyes carried the quiet confidence of someone who had been raised to rule since childhood. To most civilizations, meeting the Queen of Aurelia was a moment of honor. To some, it was a moment of fear. Today, however, something unusual had brought the court together. A single human ambassador stood in the center of the hall. Captain Adrian Hale of the United Terran Coalition. Humans were still considered newcomers to the galactic stage. Barely 2 centuries earlier, they had been confined to their own solar system. Now their ships traveled between stars. Their colonies spread across distant worlds, and their diplomats walked into the courts of ancient empires without hesitation. Some species admired their courage. Others considered it arrogance. Adrian Hale stood calmly, hands behind his back, wearing the dark uniform of a Terran fleet officer. No ornate jewelry, no royal markings, just a small silver emblem of Earth on his chest. To the Aurelian nobles, the simplicity almost looked like disrespect. Murmurs moved through the court like a slow wave. "That is the human?" one noble whispered. "He looks ordinary," another replied quietly. "Humans always look ordinary until they are not." Adrian remained silent, waiting for permission to speak. Queen Serena observed him carefully from her throne. She had read the reports about humans, determined, emotional, reckless, surprisingly resilient. But reading reports was different from seeing one stand in front of her court. Finally, she lifted one hand slightly, and the hall fell silent instantly. "Human ambassador," she said, her voice smooth and controlled. "You have requested audience with the throne of Aurelia. Speak." Adrian stepped forward exactly 1 pace and bowed his head slightly, not deeply enough to suggest submission, but respectfully enough to acknowledge her authority. "Your Majesty," he said calmly, "I bring a proposal of cooperation from the United Terran Coalition. Our people believe the future of this galaxy will depend on alliances built on respect rather than fear." The words echoed softly through the hall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a few nobles chuckled quietly. One even laughed out loud. Cooperation, respect. The words sounded strangely naive inside a court built on power and dominance. Queen Serena's lips curved slightly, though it was not a warm smile. "Respect?" she repeated softly. "Human, your civilization has been traveling between stars for barely 200 years. My empire has ruled this region for over 3,000. Few nobles nodded proudly. Adrian did not react. The queen continued, her tone polite but edged with amusement. "And yet you walk into my court and speak of alliances as if we are equals." More quiet laughter spread through the hall. Adrian met her gaze without raising his voice. "Equality is not measured by age, Your Majesty. Only by actions." The room became still. Even the drifting lights seemed to pause. For the first time, Queen Serena's smile faded slightly. The human's tone had not been aggressive, but it had not been submissive either. One of the royal advisors leaned toward the throne and whispered something. The queen listened, then gave the smallest dismissive wave. Her eyes returned to Adrian. "Tell me, Captain Hale," she said slowly, "why should the Empire of Aurelia consider a partnership with a species that is still learning its place in the galaxy?" Adrian stood silent for a moment. Many in the court expected him to argue, to defend humanity, to list achievements or military strength. Instead, he simply answered, "Because someday every empire learns that power alone is not enough." A few nobles scoffed again. Queen Serena tilted her head slightly. "Bold words from a young civilization." Adrian said nothing. The queen leaned back against her throne. Perhaps humans mistake stubbornness for wisdom, a ripple of amusement spread across the hall again. Adrian watched the reaction quietly. For a moment, it seemed as if he might respond. Instead, he simply nodded once. Then he turned. No protest, no anger, no final speech. He just turned and began walking toward the massive doors of the hall without another word. The entire court froze. No one expected that. Most diplomats would argue, beg, or try to recover their dignity. This human did none of those things. His footsteps echoed softly across the marble floor as he walked away from the throne of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Queen Serena watched him go, her expression unreadable. Something about that silence felt heavier than any argument could have been. And for the first time since the meeting began, the young queen felt a small flicker of uncertainty